If you haven't applied for TSA PreCheck or global entry yet, now may be the time, as wait times to get through security at airports has ramped up considerably and looks as if it will only get worse into the spring and summer ahead. Here with the story is WSJ Middle Seat reporter Scott McCartney. Hi, Scott. Great to see you.
Good to be with you, Tanya.
So, Scott, how much have average TSA wait times increased this winter?
Well, the average, what you really look for is the change in the average. TSA doesn't actually release data on wait times, but they say that they were consistently under 10-minute average for standard screening. And there have been times when they've actually spiked up to 15 minutes average. When you take into account all the off-peak times, all the smaller airports, everything else, that means you've had some really big increases at certain airports.
So is this even changing guidance for airport arrival times?
Yeah, so TSA and airlines are both now increasing their guidance to up to 2 hours for domestic flights, 3 hours for international flights. It's for a lot of travelers that's kind of shocking.
Absolutely. And are there some airports that stand out as having security lines that are longer than others?
Yeah, this seems to be hitting the larger airports worse than others. Atlanta has had huge problems. The airport director there sent a blistering letter to TSA a couple weeks ago. They've consistently had waits as long as 50, 55 minutes. Chicago O'Hare is another one where Monday morning the lines have been snaking through concourses and there have been waits over an hour. This affects baggage too. The American Airlines says they've had thousands of bags, most of them coming through Miami, that have been delayed by TSA in screening, and so the bags have missed their flights.
So break it down for us, Scott. What is the problem here? Why is TSA slowing down significantly? Is it manpower? Is it increased vigilance? What's going on?
Well, both. In fact, there are really three main factors going on. Manpower is down. TSA is at about 41,000 full-time equivalent screeners. They're capped at 42,500. So they're below their cap, which angers airports and airlines. But the cap itself is about 6,000 screeners below where they were 5 years ago. So they've taken budget cuts, and they are trying to staff up for summer to what would be their full staff and training about 192 screeners a week. At the same time, passenger traffic at airports is up. Atlanta says actually the first couple months of this year, their local passenger traffic, the ones who actually go through screening in Atlanta, it's up 14% compared to the prior year. There have been, because of changes in air travel, significant increases at some airports. So you got fewer screeners, you got more passengers, and then last summer there were some very embarrassing test results of TSA checkpoints, and that led to an effort to completely retrain all screeners, slow down screening, resolve all alarms. They changed the software in some of their machines to detect smaller things and to alarm on more things, and so that has all slowed down screening.
All right, so let's get to the important part for travelers. What is the answer here? Is it applying for PreCheck or global entry? Any other advice?
Yeah, PreCheck and global. So if you apply for global entry, it's $100 for 5 years. It gets you expedited processing when you enter the country. It also gets you PreCheck. It's a great deal. It's a great program, and if you travel even a couple times a year, it's well worth your while to go through the background check, have the interview with the CBP officer. It's easy, and get that status. There have been some places where PreCheck lines have been long as well. There are reduced hours for at some PreCheck locations, but all in all, it's the best thing you can do to avoid the long line.
And Scott, do you still recommend that even for families? Does TSA still try to get families through a little bit quicker, or is that not always the case?
Not always the case. So, sometimes families, kids bring more and more electronics. One of the things that's slowing things down are people stuffing bags so full because of checked baggage fees, and all of us bringing more electronics onto the plane. So you travel with maybe 2 cell phones, an iPad, a laptop. Your kid brings entertainment games or tablets or whatever.
Right.
And all of that gets a close look now and can slow down the line.
The reason I ask is because TSA PreCheck or global entry is quite an expense for a family when you multiply that by 4 or 5. So you have to weigh whether it's worth it.
Yeah, you do. And it, you know, it can be a tough call. But if you travel a lot, everybody who's in it that I've ever talked to says when it works, it's great and it's well worth it.
All right, Scott McCartney, thank you so much for that.
Sure. Take care.